Hello everyone, welcome to the presentation of our work, Ranking Info Noise Contrastive Estimation, boosting contrastive learning via ranked positives. In the contrastive learning setting, it is necessary to define for each query one positive, here depicted by an image of a dog from the same breed, and a large number of negatives. However, such a binary separation is often not possible. For example, images of dogs of a different breed share many of the visual attributes. Treating them as positive will result in an embedding space in which different dog breeds cannot be distinguished. Treating them as negative might lead to suboptimal representation and might force the network to ignore features that are dominant for all dog breeds. A similar problem arises, for instance, in video representation learning with InfoNCE. Commonly, standard image augmentations are applied to a short clip consisting of a few frames of a video to generate a positive for this query. Another option is to also exploit the time domain and sample adjacent clips or a clip from the same video after a longer time. However, it is an open research question whether they should be used as positive or negative. Most likely, the answer to this question depends on the dataset and the downstream task at hand. In this work, we propose a new way to treat these ambiguous samples properly. We introduce ranking info noise contrastive estimation, short RINS, which learns better representations by ranking. Standard InfoNCE considers all samples in the batch or a memory bank as negatives, simply leaving false negatives and ambiguous samples unaddressed. In the worst case, this results in an unstructured representation in which semantically very similar samples are embedded far from each other, as depicted here for the dog breeds. Using RINS allows to explicitly enforce a structured representation in which related images will be closer than unrelated images. Let's first revisit standard InfoNCE. For InfoNCE, we assume that for each query, here shown with a black marker, we have access to at least one positive, or can simply generate one. Furthermore, we assume access to a set of negative samples. As can be seen by the loss equation, minimizing InfoNCE results in, first, maximizing the numerator and therefore maximizing the similarity measure H between the embedding of the query Q and the embedding of the positive P. Second, minimizing the denominator, therefore minimizing the similarity H between the query Q and the negative N. As already said, all negatives in a mini-batch or the memory bank that are not the positive are used as negative. In some scenarios, multiple positives might be available. For example, it is possible to apply multiple different variants of augmentations to generate positives. Clusters or nearest neighbors can be used, or in the supervised case, even class labels can be used to gain access to multiple positives. InfoNCE can be extended to multiple positives in two obvious ways. Both are explored in the work Supervised Contrastive Learning. To extend InfoNCE to multiple positives, one can either sum over the positives outside of the logarithm, denoted as L-out, or inside of the logarithm, denoted as L-in. The in option tends to be more robust towards noise in the set of positives, since the similarity of individual positives plays a smaller role in the final loss compared to the out option. Highly related to our work, and our baseline throughout this work, is Supervised Contrastive Learning, short SCL. It uses exactly the in and out options introduced on the last slide. We will refer to them as SCL in or SCL out. SCL uses class labels to define the set of positives. Some of our experiments evaluate RINS in this supervised contrastive learning setting. Another related work, which addresses ambiguous samples, is called false negative cancellation. This work tries to find false negatives using a nearest neighbor strategy. False negatives are either cancelled from the loss or used as additional positives. While treating false negatives as additional positives leads to better results, they show that this is very sensitive to the quality of the found false negatives, and therefore the number of nearest neighbors used. In contrast to their approach, our method does not require a binary definition of positive and negative. We will now introduce our method called RINS. For this explanation, we assume that a set of ranked positives is available. We will later discuss methods to obtain such a ranking. The figure on the right depicts the most simple example of just two ranks. The rank 1 positives come from the same class and rank 2 positives from a similar class. RINS aims to enforce a ranking in the feature space such that the similarity between query and rank 1 positives is larger than the query and the intermediate positives, which has a larger similarity than the query and the negatives. To enforce this ranking, we define for each rank the info NCE loss. For each of these loss functions, the definition of positives and negatives differ. The final loss is simply the sum over the individual RINS loss terms. Let's consider this simple example with only two ranks. For the rank 1 loss, we use all rank 1 positives as positives. Rank 2 positives are used as negatives. This loss will maximize the similarity between query and rank 1 positives, while minimizing the similarity between query and rank 2 positives. Of course, also the similarity between query and the negatives is minimized. For the rank 2 loss, we use all rank 2 positives as positives, but only the set of negatives will be used as negatives. Note that the rank 1 positives completely drop out of the rank 2 RINS term. The second RINS loss term will maximize the similarity between query and rank 2 positives and minimize the similarity to the negatives. It follows that the rank 1 RINS term minimizes the similarity to rank 2 positives, while the rank 2 term maximizes it. In order to minimize the overall loss, the network is forced to find an equilibrium between these two opposing terms. For the explanation of RINS, we have shown the in option. Note that the out option can also be used. Actually, for RINS, this choice can be made for each rank individually. Here we report results for in and out, and the mixture using out for rank 1 and in for rank 2. Rationale behind this out-in is that with increasing rank, usually the uncertainty about the similarity increases as well. In such cases, using RINS in for higher ranks might be beneficial. Similarly as for normal contrastive learning, the temperature parameter tau plays a critical role for RINS. Here, we chose a different tau for each rank. More precisely, we increase tau with increasing rank. Increasing tau with the rank has two main effects. First, close negatives will be emphasized more in the loss function than far negatives for early ranks. Second, in RINS we have opposing terms. The RINS loss term 1 maximizes the distance between query and rank 2 positives, while the RINS loss term 2 minimizes this distance. The taus control the equilibrium between these two opposing terms. For more details, please have a look at our paper or visit us during our poster presentation. Let's move to the experimental results. We evaluate RINS in three settings with diminishing supervision. First, we evaluate in the fully supervised setting with ground truth annotation and ground truth ranking. To this end, we use Cypher 100. As rank 1, we use the class labels. As rank 2, we use the class category labels or superclasses. Next, we evaluate on ImageNet 100. Again, we use ground truth class labels for rank 1. To obtain a ranking, we use class name similarities obtained from an off-the-shelf NLP model. Last, we evaluate in the completely unsupervised setting in video representation learning and obtain higher ranked positives by shifting in time. For evaluation, we consider various settings. We evaluate using classification accuracy in the linear probe setting. This means we freeze the pre-trained network and only train a linear layer on top. Next, we evaluate with retrieval. Here, we simply retrieve the closest image in the embedding space to a given test sample without any fine-tuning. Last, we evaluate on the task of out-of-distribution detection. Here, the task is to identify samples from classes not seen during training. In the fully supervised setting on Cypher 100, rank 1 positives come from the same class. Rank 2 positives from the superclass. For example, the class sunflower belongs to the superclass flowers. Therefore, all other flowers in Cypher 100 will be considered rank 2 positives for sunflowers. As can be seen in the first two columns, all variants of RINS outperform SCL and cross entropy for linear probe accuracy and retrieval. Additionally, we evaluate the same model on the superclass labels instead of the class labels. Also in this setting, using ranking information leads to clear benefit. Therefore, samples within the same superclass tend to be closer to the query for RINs than for other methods. In these plots, you can see the visualization of the embedding of the Cypher 100 test data after TSNE dimensionality reduction for SCL on the left and RINs on the right. It reveals that the RINs embedding space is better structured. Classes are better separable from other classes, with fewer samples scattered somewhere in between the class clusters. As a result, a RINs embedding space should be superior for simple out-of-distribution detection. A common class of out-of-distribution detection approaches first estimates the density in the embedding space and, during test time, computes an in-distribution score based on this density. From this class, we choose a very simple approach for density estimation. First, we embed the entire training set to the embedding space. Next, we fit one multivariate Gaussian per class to its embeddings. During test time, we compute for a given sample the log likelihood for each class conditional Gaussian. The in-distribution score is simply the maximum of these log likelihoods over the Gaussians. As a result, outliers will have a very low score and can be detected as outlier. Due to the simplicity of our approach, it also measures, to some extent, how well the class embeddings can be modeled by a Gaussian. Here, we evaluate the models trained on Cypher 100 on the outlier dataset Cypher 10 and TinyImageNet. As can be seen, all variants of RINs clearly outperform our baselines. Further, RINs outperforms Contrastive OOD, a recent approach that uses contrastive learning in combination with cross-entropy to obtain better OOD accuracy. ODIN is a well-known OOD approach, but is not directly comparable to our work. While RINs can be used out of the box, ODIN requires some data points labeled as OOD for parameter selection. Contrastive OOD and RINs do not need any data points labeled as OOD. Despite using less information, RINs outperforms ODIN on Cypher 10. However, RINs is outperformed by ODIN on TinyImageNet. Next, we evaluate RINs on a larger dataset, namely ImageNet 100. Furthermore, we test the applicability of RINs in scenarios with noisy ranking. Rank 1 positives are without noise and use the class label information. That means rank 1 positives come from the same class. To obtain the rank 2 positives, we use the Roberta model, an off-the-shelf NLP model to embed all ImageNet 100 class names. Given these embeddings, we compute a similarity score as the cosine similarity between the embeddings. Rank 2 positives are samples with higher class similarity score than a given threshold. The left part of the table shows that RINs outperforms all baselines in terms of linear probe accuracy. Further, we evaluate on two OOD datasets, namely non-overlapping ImageNet classes and animal with attributes 2. Again, RINs outperforms all baselines. Let's now move to the fully unsupervised case. We demonstrate the applicability to this scenario using self-supervised video representation learning as an example. We train a 3D ResNet 18 on short clips with 16 frames length from the Kinetics 400 dataset. For training, we do not use any labels. To obtain a ranking, we simply exploit the gradual changes over time that are present in a video. As can be seen in the figure, adjacent clips will have more in common than clips from the same video at a later point in time. Here, we obtain rank 1 positives by using the same clip, but apply different augmentations to it. Rank 2 positives are obtained from a clip adjacent to the query clip. Rank 3 positives are obtained from a different time interval of the same video. Negatives are simply taken from other videos. We first pre-train the network without labels on Kinetics 400. After that, we fine-tune the pre-trained network on HMDB and UCF with cross-entropy. HMDB and UCF are well-known action recognition datasets and commonly used for evaluation of self-supervised video representation learning methods. Further, we evaluate without any fine-tuning using retrieval. This setting is particularly difficult since the network was never trained on the dataset. The top part of the table shows recent self-supervised video representation learning methods using the same architecture and comparable experimental setup. Additionally, we show 3 of our own baselines. Normal Info NCE, which only uses rank 1 positives, hard positive baseline, which uses rank 1, rank 2, and rank 3 as positives without any ranking, and hard negative, which uses rank 1 and rank 2 as positive and rank 3 as additional negatives. The rationale behind the last baseline is that after a certain amount of time, the content in the video changed that much that it shouldn't be used as a positive anymore. Since we only have a single positive for each rank, the in or out version of RINS are identical. This variant of RINS is called RINS uni. Again, it can be seen that RINS outperforms all our baselines on all metrics. So far, we have shown that training with RINS results in a better representation with nice properties. However, we did not evaluate explicitly where RINS learns to rank. There are 2 obvious locations where the ranking could happen: in the backbone network or in the projection head. The projection head is simply a small MLP that maps the embedding space to a task-specific space. This is a common design choice as the deeper layers of the network tend to overfit to the pretext task in self-supervised learning. To see where RINS learns to rank, we compute the class similarity matrices in both embedding spaces for Cypher 100. To compute class similarities, we compute for all pairs of classes the mean cosine similarity between the respective samples. The diagonal shows the within-class similarity. For visualization, we sort the classes such that classes belonging to the same superclass are next to each other. As a result, an embedding space that perfectly adheres to the ranking should have very high values on the diagonal, which shows the mean within-class similarity. And for each superclass, a 5x5 block structure should be visible centered at the diagonal. This corresponds to the class-to-superclass similarity. As can be seen here, the self-similarity is given in the embedding space before the MLP. However, the class-to-superclass similarity is small for most superclasses. Computing the same matrix in the space after the MLP reveals that the ranking is learned to a large extent by the MLP head. Therefore, if ranking is a desired property in the embedding space and required for the downstream task, either the space after the MLP should be used or no MLP should be used in the first place. We introduced RINS, a new loss function that allows to exploit ranking information to learn a better representation space by ranking positives and ambiguous samples. We show in multiple experiments the higher quality of the representation and improved OOD detection capabilities. We show exemplarily with unsupervised video representation learning that RINS is applicable to the self-supervised setting. Our code is available on GitHub. Thank you for your attention. We hope to see many of you in our poster session for interesting discussions or to answer your questions.